Carleigh Bodrug, thank you so much for joining us on the Plant Trainers podcast today.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm so excited about this.
We're super excited too, and you're not so far away from us. You're like a 30-minute drive, and it's super exciting to have fellow Canadian, putting plant-based out there for everybody to see. So thanks for what you do, and we want to know if you have a moment of gratitude to share with us.
Yes, at the current time of this recording, we're going through COVID-19 and basically under a lockdown in Canada. So I would say I'm very grateful to have a roof over my head, running water, heat, and all of those things that I think so many of us take for granted often.
Yeah, starting to think about what might we need to live without moving forward over the next couple of weeks. And we had a power failure here just a couple of days ago, and it kind of sent us into panic mode because we're busy thinking and preparing and living one way that's so different from what we're used to right now. And then the lights went out and we're like, how long will this last? What will happen to the food in the fridge? When dark comes, will we find our flashlights, kind of thing? So, all those small little things that you don't normally think about, I think everybody's kind of thinking about right now.
And not only that, we lost our internet connection, which cut us off from everybody that we're in contact with, except for our small family that we have together. So it does put things in perspective. It's a very challenging time for everybody right now. And I think what we're going to talk about today might be very helpful for a lot of people as they prepare for what's to come, because we really don't know what is to come or how long we're going to be in this current situation for.
Yeah, so we're definitely going to help people out. Why don't you, before we get into that, tell us a little bit about how you found plant-based and what it did for you?
Of course. So in 2015, news came out from the World Health Organization that red meat and processed meat had been now considered a class 1 and class 2 carcinogen. So this hit me and my family like a ton of bricks. We had grown up as meat and potatoes diet, probably what most people now refer to a standard American diet, glass of milk with dinner every night, meat and potatoes. And my dad, years and years ago, had colon cancer, stage 2 colon cancer. And that news then came out 10 years later in 2015. He's a survivor. And I remember him just being so angry because he had had this super invasive surgery, had survived cancer, and had continued to eat the very thing that had probably caused it. And so that news hit us like a ton of bricks. And at the time, I was living up in Northern Ontario on my own in a small basement apartment. And basically overnight, my entire family started transitioning to a plant-based lifestyle. However, having come from that background of never eating a vegetarian meal in my life, didn't know what to do, how to cook, how to approach it. So we started looking up plant-based recipes online, started playing around in the kitchen, and eventually saw that there was definitely a gap online for truly, truly simple whole food, plant-based, unprocessed recipes. And that's when I just started sharing some simple recipe infographics on my blog, Plant You, and on my Instagram account. And it kind of took off from there. So I've been on this journey because I truly think that a whole food, plant-based diet is the absolute best way to health-proof your body. Just some immediate things that I noticed when I went plant-based. I lost 5 to 10 pounds without even trying. I wouldn't say I necessarily needed to lose weight, but it just kind of fell off, and have maintained that weight for the last 5 years. My skin and hair had never felt better. I had lifetime, this might be TMI, but lifetime issues of constipation. And I had actually been on medication as a kid for this, and those subsided almost instantly. So it's just such a lack of fiber in that kind of traditional American diet where you're eating cheese and meat for so many meals to going to so many vegetables. So I was on a mission to tell everybody about this, and I still am. So eventually the blog in popularity, and now I'm doing this full time. So it's truly living out a dream.
That's super exciting how you were able to do that all with your family, right? You all did that together. How's your dad now?
Great. He loves eating a plant-based diet, and he's doing fantastic. And we're so thankful that we found it when we did. However, honestly, I always say I wish I had eaten this way my entire life. But I guess you can't choose when you kind of find something like this.
No, you definitely can't. And I think that you found it young enough that, I mean, anybody finds it young enough that it should have a great effect on the rest of their life, but, pretty young. And I think right now, what we're going through with COVID-19, I think a lot more people are going to be finding a plant-based lifestyle because people are home more, they're listening to podcasts more, they're researching more, they're looking for blogs, they're looking for recipes that they can make that will feed their children. There's a shortage of specific foods in the grocery stores because people are hoarding it. So it leaves them with no other choice, and they're home from work. And I find that a lot of people mean to make healthier versions of what they make already, or mean to make new vegetarian or vegan dishes. But the truth is, for a lot of people, there's a lot of anxiety that comes with making new recipes. So when you're at work all day until 5 and go and pick up the kids or do errands on the way home and get home late, no one's in the mood or has the energy to do it. So people who are working from home or not working right now have more time at their disposal to be able to get involved in these beautiful vegan plant-based meals.
It's definitely a unique opportunity where people can definitely take advantage of having healthier food and finding foods that have fiber, which is what most people in the world are lacking in their diet. And the results that you personally had are not special to you. They're very common results that people tend to have once they transition to a plant-based diet. And we're not saying that people have to go all the way right now. They could transition over time if that's what they want to do, but adding in those healthier fruits and vegetables that are going to give you that fiber, it's such a great opportunity to make that change with your entire family.
Yeah, and one of the things that actually was massively helpful when I first went plant-based is meal prep. So I was at that time working Monday to Friday, regular hours, and by prepping my meals on Sunday for the week, it was a massive game changer for being able to stay consistently plant-based. And another thing is, I think people often look at a plant-based or vegan lifestyle like they're losing something. But what I gained was just an abundance of different meals. I had been eating the same chicken, rice, and green bean meal for so long in my life. I can't tell you how many different cuisines, Mexican, Thai, Italian, that I discovered by going plant-based. So it's really looking at it from an abundance standpoint rather than what you're losing, which is probably the same three cuts of meat on your dinner plate every night.
Absolutely. And shopping does change when you change that as well. So let's talk about some ideas that people can do right now while they're sitting at home and they're planning their next big food shop, because that's what everybody's doing. What are some of the things that we should be doing in terms of planning ahead and getting that food shop list ready?
Of course. So I find planning is the number one tool for saving money, saving time, and saving your health if you want to get on board with this plant-based lifestyle. So I would suggest getting out a piece of paper or going on your laptop and making a schedule from Monday to Friday. Decide what you want to eat for the week. So often what I find easiest is eating the same breakfast for a few days a week, the same lunch for a few days a week, and maybe changing up the dinner a couple times a week. This allows you to prep multiple meals at once. So for example, I would suggest going onto Pinterest and looking up easy plant-based meals. The amount of bloggers that are serving us right now is just incredible with plant-based recipe ideas. Look at recipes that have overlapping ingredients so that you don't have to buy so many different things to complement several different meals. So for example, one breakfast that I find serves me great every single week are oats, overnight oats, stovetop oats. You can do them in so many different ways. And if you look at what doctors eat, what plant-based doctors eat in a day, generally they're starting their day with oats. Looking at different comfort food recipes, so soups, pastas, chilies. Those are all great meals that can last over time and can also be changed up. So, for example, you could have a chili one night and then serve it in a burrito the next, and then freeze it for another meal. So, looking at meals that are flexible in that way. And again, once you set up a schedule for the week, then make a grocery list for yourself and stick to it. This is going to be super helpful in also eliminating food waste and just executing your plan for the week.
Definitely. And something that we teach quite often. And I think that it's important for people to be kind to themselves. So if they get to the grocery store and they planned on, making a green lentil pasta sauce to go with, specific pasta, and they get there and there's no green lentils, but there's brown lentils, that's okay too. Just check for the cooking times and see how that might change. Or if you're used to penne, but there's no penne and you have to use rigatoni instead, go ahead and do that too. You don't need to follow all the directions specifically. Even if you're not good at cooking, there's flexibility there, and be easy on yourself and be kind to yourself. And if you have young children who are used to a specific noodle, find a fun way to change it and tell them how it's changing or why it's changing, or make up some story about, how the penne, got stuck in a wind, I don't know, something, like why it's twirly now instead of stuck. Don't let this be an extra stress on you when you get to the grocery store and there might not be the same things that you expect on the shelf.
Yeah, and to that point, one of the biggest tips that I give beginners is looking at what you eat and what some of your favorite meals are now if you're still eating meat. So one of my favorite meals when I was still eating meat was pasta with bolognese sauce with ground beef. So one of the first meals I veganized was pasta with lentils and marinara sauce, and it just felt very familiar to me and wasn't that much of a shift. I also get a lot of questions from people who might be the only person transitioning in their home. And a strategy to approach that is, rather than treating meat as the main portion of the dish each night, treat it as a side dish, treat it as like a complement to the dish rather than the main portion. So you could still have meatballs on the side for your spouse, but be eating a lentil pasta sauce with your pasta. And it kind of extends to everything. So if you're making a curry, you could have a vegetable curry and they could have chicken on the side. This is reality. Like people take time to transition, and that's okay. You can even start by just adding more plants to your meal and reducing the amount of animal products you're eating.
This is also a really good time for those of you who are plant-based at home, but the rest of the family isn't, to be like, oh, I went to the grocery store and there was no chicken today. So you're going to have, tofu in the same sauce instead. Oops, sorry, everyone. Slim pickings out there.
A lot of people are going to have to be more flexible in what they're going to be bringing home, because potentially grocery stores are going to be running out of certain items depending on where you live. And it's going to be an adaptation. You're going to have to modify what you're eating and cooking and preparing for the family and make the best with what you've got. Because of the times we're in, people are going to start to batch cook like we've been talking about, even though they have more time to do it during the week. But if they want to start to put some food away longer term and start to freeze things, are there certain foods that are better, that keep longer frozen, versus ones that don't?
Yes, absolutely. So the great news is that almost any vegetable and fruit can be frozen pretty well, except those with a high moisture content. So things that freeze really well are corn, peas, broccoli, cauliflower, carrots, green peas, squash, greens such as spinach, kale, chard and collards, onions, peppers, celery, and herbs. Those can all be frozen. the veggies that I would stay away from freezing are things like cucumbers, cabbage, radishes, mushrooms, lettuce. Again, because they have that high moisture content. So when you thaw them, they're going to become very mushy. However, how you use these is key once they're frozen. So I wouldn't necessarily then be adding them to a salad, like a frozen broccoli thawed I would not add to a salad, but great in things like stews and curries and any sort of sauces and soups. Again, further to your point about freezing foods, it's a great idea to also make foods ahead. So anything like soups or chilies are amazing to freeze. So you make a huge batch of that, and then I suggest freezing them in individual portions so that you can just grab a portion out of the fridge and thaw it rather than thawing the entire portion at once. And really, this is just a great way to save time. And if you're very stressed out, which I imagine a ton of people are right now, it's just an easy way to have meals on hand. It was interesting because I went to the grocery store a couple of weeks ago when this all started, and I had heard that it was like just absolutely barren in the grocery store. And I was just shocked because I didn't notice any different because there was such a mass amount of produce. The second time I went, I did take a look at the meat and cheese and egg aisles, and those were wiped out. So I don't know where everybody is listening from right now, but I found there to be quite a bit of fresh produce in the aisle. It's a good idea to wash it, throw it in the freezer so you're good for a long period of time.
Yeah, so when I heard about it also, I went to the grocery store. It was like 9 o'clock at night already. And I'm like, I was going to wait till tomorrow, but schools had been canceled and everybody was in
panic mode.
And I'm like, well, I'm not panicking yet, but if they're panicking, my family's going to starve, right? So I better get out there. So the pasta aisles were completely wiped out. The pasta sauces completely wiped out. Crackers were, depending on the type of crackers, were kind of gone. There were no potatoes whatsoever. There were no carrots whatsoever, except for like the ones that still had the green on top, like $5 a bunch for like 4 carrots. But otherwise, everything in the produce section was there. There was no meat, there was no cheese, there was none of that. And in the organic section, there were, and the gluten-free section, like the specialty section, there was just about everything except for slim pickings on rice and beans. But otherwise, and rice and beans from the rest of the sections were gone except for the minute rice. So I find that it hasn't really changed what we're shopping for so much because it's all the produce that we're shopping for, and it's mostly in the organic section, organic rice, organic beans, things like that. But the other thing that was missing was frozen peas and corns, frozen everything. All the frozen vegetables were gone, which I was really happy about. So it made me say, okay, people are eating more vegetables than I think they are. People are preparing to eat more vegetables than maybe they were before. So I was really happy about that. But then I wasn't left with much in terms of the frozen. But I've got the skills and the know-how to say, okay, I can take this, bring it home, wash it, and freeze it right away too, as long as we don't run out of room in the freezer. So I think a lot of people do want to freeze what they're cooking and freeze their vegetables so that they have it long term.
Absolutely. And it's a great idea to do, especially because that frozen food is gone right now. And in terms of like how to freeze these vegetables, all you want to do is simply give them a wash and then put them let them dry and then put them in a freezer bag if you have them. I recently switched to almost all glass Pyrex containers. The nice thing about those, they have plastic lids and you can actually freeze them. So any kind of Tupperware container can usually be freezed. So if you're thinking long term, that's the way to go. Bags and some great products now on the market, although if you don't have them right now, you might not be able to get them. But I recently discovered this company called Super Cubes that are basically like gigantic silicone ice cube trays, but you put pre-portioned meals in them and they freeze amazing. And there's no risk for kind of cracking and breaking, although you'll notice on the bottom of most Pyrex containers and snap lock containers now, it will say freezer friendly if they are. So make sure to check for that.
Yeah, I will find that we'll freeze a chili and I'll take it out and put it, not even hard, but I'll just put it on the counter and then the bottom plastic will chip off. I guess it wasn't meant
Yeah.
necessarily to be frozen, or maybe not for the deep freeze. And I do use, because we're still switching over to get more, we didn't want to do it all at once, right? So we're still switching over to have more glass and more of the, they're not plastic, but they're kind of, they're reusable kind of Ziplocs, right? So we're doing that big switch. And as we do that switch and as we're going through these times, I am using more Ziploc baggies than I would like to, as I, cook all my beans and freeze them, and cook rice and freeze that. Because we had that power outage, it made me think, okay, if we have no power, no takeout, what do we do? I am using those Ziploc baggies, but what I'm doing is I'm actually writing on them what they are and the date of which I froze it, so that I put the bag when it's empty back in the freezer, and then I could reuse it again. So the next time I make black beans, I put it back into the black bean Ziploc. So I'm using it a couple of times over, so I don't feel as bad about being wasteful into the environment too.
And I think that goes back to giving ourselves grace in your plant-based journey and everything. These are trying times right now. And if you need to use a Ziploc bag to freeze some food, absolutely, by all means, on my book. I think we're all on our own journey, and we're all just trying to do the best we can right now, and especially feeding our families. So however you can freeze that food, I'd say do it.
Yeah, so we've talked about freezing soups, freezing chilies, freezing fruits and vegetables. Some of those can be used again, like can be steamed and used again. Some of those would be better off in stews and chilies and things like that. Or smoothies. So that's something that we've done. I bought a whole bunch of mangoes and they were all going bad at the same time. So, I threw them in the freezer, which is helpful too. The other thing that I like batching is my pancake mix. I don't like buying a pancake mix. I like making it from scratch. So I will put all of the dry ingredients into a container or a Ziploc baggie that I reuse and reuse and reuse. And I'll put all the baking soda, baking powder, cinnamon, everything right in there. So all I need to do is add the wet ingredients. Is there anything else that people can batch without having to actually cook right now that you could think of?
Yeah, absolutely. I would say I love making like a muesli. So combining like oats and chia seeds and hemp hearts and maybe dried fruit like cranberries into just a container so that you can scoop it out, add it to your cereal, have a cereal really quickly, or even heat up as oats. So having that really close by is excellent. I also read about people freezing raw vegan cookie dough. So if you want to put cookie dough together using maybe oat flour and peanut butter and maybe some mashed banana, and then freezing that, taking it out and slipping it in the oven. Definitely, if you are going to the cooking side, chilies and soups are kind of the way to go if you're freezing, because they just are so great. And I find sometimes even better curries and stuff like that as well.
Oh, and lentil loaves and burgers.
Yes.
That's a
Yeah,
good time for
lentil
that
loaf
too.
and burgers. Burgers are excellent. One thing I've found with burgers over the years, veggie burgers, to avoid them from crumbling when you thaw them, I like to cook them first and then just add them to a pan when they're thawed, and they turn out excellent.
Yes, yes. And I could remember, pans and pans and pans of burgers that I make all at once, and then months go by and I'm like, oh no, I gotta make it again. But this is a great time for people to be taking the time to do that. That burger recipe that's been in like the back of your screenshots on your camera roll, make sure that you get to them and take the time to do it now if you have the time. Let's not waste the time on Netflix and popcorn. So, some time on Netflix and popcorn, but really take some action and learn some new skills and get confident in the kitchen, so that when life is back to normal, you've acquired these skills and things seem easier and faster.
If you have veggies going bad as well, one thing I absolutely love to prep and it makes your kitchen smell amazing is veggie broth. So you can use literally absolutely anything in your fridge. I've used beets, like old carrots and celery and scraps of stuff. Throw it in a pot with a bunch of water and some salt and seasonings such as turmeric and basil, and let that cook down for about 4 hours and then add to freezer safe containers. And you can use broth in so many amazing dishes. One forewarning though, the first time fiance and I did this, we added it to mason jars and we filled them up too high. Don't think we let them cool enough before they went in the freezer. It was just an explosion of broth in our freezer. So you want to make sure that there's room in the top of your mason jars if you're doing it that way, and that you let them cool completely before putting in the freezer. But broth is a great one.
Yes, and my rule of thumb is if you have to ask somebody in the house if they think that it's too full or not, that you should just take a little bit more out and err on the side of caution.
That's perfect.
Even if I say yes.
Even if he says yes. Yeah, unless you're looking to get them in trouble.
Yeah.
Then you could blame them later.
So Carleigh, what right now would be a great recipe that you enjoy making that other people could get to during these tough times?
Okay, let me see. I'm a huge, huge curry fan. And the reason I'm a huge curry fan is there's so many ways you could do it. So look in your aisles for red curry paste. And if there isn't red curry paste, yellow curry paste, or green curry paste, start looking for Indian spices then. You're going to go from Thai to Indian. So start looking for something called garam masala. You might have cumin, and other turmeric in your cupboard already. And you're going to want coconut milk and maybe a can of chopped tomatoes if you have it. You can also use fresh. Throw the coconut milk and a can of chopped tomatoes in a pan and add either that red curry paste or some spices such as garam masala and cumin and turmeric, and add whatever vegetables you have in the fridge. Frozen peas are amazing, tofu's amazing in it, and you can serve this over a variety of grains, which is why I also love it. So it could go over quinoa, rice noodles, or I've even seen some people make like a red curry pasta dish. So just having that variety for that one dish is really key in making sure that everybody can make it with what they have right now.
And it's very comforting. I find it, actually on, what was it, Tuesday or something like that, Adam's like, I'm craving comfort food. And I'm like, oh dear, what do you want now? And he's like, I just want curry. And I'm like, yes, curry is a great comfort food, but it's also healthy, right? It's got spices in it. It's got antioxidants in it. It's got a ton of vegetables in it. And if it's done right, it's going to be done healthfully and it's going to nourish the body.
I think it's funny though, because there are so many people that would say curry, no, I can't eat Indian, or that kind of smell, I can't tolerate it.
15 years ago.
That was us not too right. It was us. We were totally not into curry, and then we just opened up to it and it completely changed our lives.
So we would go to Adam's aunt's house for dinner, and if she was making a dish with cilantro in it, she would even have to put the cilantro on the side. Like any of those kind of spices, the sea spices were like a no for us. And then we picked up and we moved to Hong Kong for 2 years, and then we decided to go to India for 3 weeks, not liking curry, not thinking we liked curry, not being open to trying it. But then we got there and we just started tasting it and liking it, and we were immersed in it, and we haven't looked back. So if you're that person who goes, oh, I can never do curry, I challenge you to do it and start with the Thai curry. Start with the Thai curry. Yeah.
Yeah, it's one of those dishes you kind of grow to love. I was the same, visited Thailand a few years back, and then I just became so obsessed with curry to the point where everybody knows now, like I'm like curry obsessed, because I find it, again, it's one of those comfort foods, and it has all those kind of like antioxidant spices, and there's just nothing better at a time like this to curl up on the couch with a big bowl of curry.
So if somebody wanted to find one of your curry recipes or burger recipes or lentil loaves or soups or anything that they can eat and feel great and freeze right now, where would you like them to go look for that?
Yeah, so the great place to start is my Instagram page because I have these infographic recipes that display the ingredients in photos and then a lot of how to do it and the photo of the recipe. So that's a really good place to start. It's instagram.com/plantu. I've also got a ton of recipes on my website at plantu.com. And for those who are really interested in getting in on this and they need help, I actually have something called the Plant Ahead program where I release a brand new meal plan every single week for members that is based actually on meal prep, and it's just $7.99 per month. So right now we're really focusing on utilizing kind of those pantry staples and then making sure that the veggies in the dishes are super flexible.
Yeah, that's awesome. The infographics that you have on your Instagram page are super clear and super simple, and for sure helping so many people and helping them plan healthier foods and meals is really a great thing that you're doing, helping so many people. We really appreciate you sharing all your knowledge today and the tips and tricks that you've shared. And we know our audience is really going to appreciate as well. So thanks for taking the time, Carleigh, to be with us.
Thank you so much for having me on. I really appreciate it. And everybody stay healthy and happy and take care of yourselves during this time.
Thank you. Thanks.